forget all the things you've been taught, you've been told. Don't blink, don't run, don't turn left or turn right or look straight at the sun. My mind's going in circles, I'm trying to fight it, getting these voices inside to.
It was a very fine weather with people out in the hustling city of New York. Everyone was minding their own business and had something to do in their busy lives. In all this hustling, a girl named Vian was happily skipping on the road in her own thoughts, with a beautiful smile gracing her pumpy pink lips. Wearing a beautiful pink knee-length frock with a silver chain and a jingling bracelet, the girl entered inside the gift shop. The jingling of her bracelet could be heard from far away, her hazel eyes twinkling like shining stars and her waist-length hair flowing with movements of her walking. "So, what do you want, Vian dear?" the old lady, owner of the shop, asked to the girl, Vian. She turned her head towards her and beamed at her. "I want the best gift for my boyfriend, Granny." The old woman smiled at her. Vian always visits at her shop for buying gifts for her beloved boyfriend Chris Kane. Today is his birthday. "How much money did you save this time, my dear?" the old woman asked in utter concern. "Not much, Granny. I'm saving them for last 6 months for my salary, but I think still they are not enough," she sadly pouted. "My dear, you should think for yourself too." The old lady's forehead creased in concern. "Yeah, I know, Granny. That's why I work in the cafe, so I can wear mine and Chris expensive." Vian said, looking here and here for a perfect gift for her boyfriend. The old woman shook her head at the sweet girl's naivety, not understanding how her boyfriend is making her work and enjoying his life on her earning. He was a worthless man at the name of a boyfriend because all he does is to live at her money. "See, Granny, I want to give him this. Will he like this?" Vian suddenly asked, finding a beautiful glass wall which had a beautiful couple inside it with some detailing and lighting. "Yeah, it's so beautiful, my child. He will surely like it," the old woman said to make her happy, but inside she knew he doesn't want her love and affection. He only wants her earning to spend on himself. Vian took out her whole savings which she collected for last 6 months from her earning that she saved for her own needed expenses. She handed the money to the old lady and took the gift she bought for her boyfriend. Jumping and twirling, she exited the shop. She was happy because she found a beautiful gift to give her boyfriend on his 23rd birthday. "I told Chris I will not come home today because I'll have a night stay with Kat at her house, and now I will surprise him with this gift," she thought and giggled. Happily dancing in her mind, she started walking towards her apartment, which was few blocks away from the cafe in which she works. She also got friends there named Natalia and Kat, but Natalia is her best friend. Lost in her own thoughts, she was heading to her apartment which she shares with Chris. They used to live on the 9th floor, so she stood in front of the lift waiting for it to come down. Few seconds passed of waiting as impatient as she was, so she decided to use the stairs. Jogging towards the stairs, she started climbing them, wanting to reach up as soon as possible. After 10 minutes of climbing the stairs, she was tired as hell. But was she in the mood to stop? No. She finally reached the 9th floor, a little panting and breathing heavily. She smiled when she saw the door of her apartment in front of her. All her tiredness vanished away in the air. She jogged towards it and took out the spare keys from her little bag hanging on her left shoulder. Taking out the keys, she hastily opened the door, not wanting to make any noise. She tiptoed towards the living room, thinking as always Chris would be playing games, but found it empty. Then she checked the kitchen and balcony, but he was not there also. "Where is he?" she thought. She decided to check the bedroom then. She creaked open the door and peeked inside it, but what she saw made her frozen at her place. The gift she bought for Chris fell down from her hands. The glass ball shattered in millions of pieces just like her heart. Thick tears started rolling down her eyes and she started sobbing like a little kid. She was numb. She never thought she would see this situation in her life. Her boyfriend Chris was ducking her one and only best friend Natalia. She always believed them with blind eyes. The heavy noise of glass shattering caught Chris and Natalia's attention. They both were off guard. Wrapping the bedsheet around her, Natalia stood there like a statue. Chris also wore his clothes hastily and faced Vian. "Don't you know how to knock?" he asked while gritting his teeth. "Why did you do that?" she asked with her numb mind and blank eyes. You know that, Ryan. Why did I do that? He said without any ounce of guilt in his eyes or voice. But you said you will never cheat on me. Again, you promised me. She cried out and started sobbing again. He strode towards her and held her both shoulders. Tightly shaking her, he said, I had to, Ryan. I had to. I am also a man with needs, so you should have said that to me. She cried out and jerked his hands away from her. Said to you? You should have thought that on your own. I waited for it for years. He spat rudely, averting his gaze away from her. But I didn't want that soon, she said, hiccuping and rubbing her eyes. But I wanted that from the start, you dumb girl, he said, gritting his teeth. So you cheated on me. And you, Natalia, you were my best friend, right? She asked, moving her gaze at Natalia and sobbing a little. Don't take it seriously, Ryan. It was just a one-time thing. She shrugged. How can you both do this to me? This time, she cried harder, not believing their nonchalant behavior. She strode towards Chris and started punching him in the chest with her fist, saying, Why did you do that? You were my soulmate, my forever love. Why did you do that? He held her both wrists and shrugged her away from him. Oh, stop it, Ryan. It's not a big deal. See, baby, we still can be together. Just you have to give me another chance, he said, smiling sweetly at her. No, she yelled at him at the top of her lungs. I gave you a chance before, but you cheated on me again. I don't want to be with you anymore, she cried out in pain, and shock was underlying in her voice. She said and glared at both of them. She strode out of her apartment. She took the lift and reached down on the ground floor and left the building. The whole incident numbed her soul. Now she had nothing to lose, nowhere to go, no one to talk. She is alone now. It hurts. It hurts a lot. Author's POV. It's not the first time when Ryan's boyfriend Chris cheated on her. Ryan, a beautiful name for a beautiful girl, innocent, clumsy, honest, kind-hearted, naive, and enthusiastic are the words which describes her. She lives with her boyfriend Chris Kane in the New York City of USA. She left her parents far in a different city when they disowned her because they didn't like her relationship with Chris. They never liked Chris. He met her in high school and got in relationship with her. Her parents thought with time she will understand he has not so good intentions for her and leave him. But she thinks Chris is her soulmate, her forever love. When her parents didn't accept their relationship, so she left her hometown and came with Chris to live in different city, New York. They bought an apartment here, more like she bought an apartment and started living together. Ryan started working in a cafe to earn money while Chris stays at home jobless because he never felt the necessity of earning when Ryan was doing that hard work for both of them. There she met Natalia and Kat, but she doesn't interact with Kat that much. Natalia was her best friend with whom she shared her every secret. But now what will she do when the two important persons in her life betrayed her? Where will she go now? She doesn't know anyone in this big city. It was evening now. Walking mindlessly, Ryan was just heading on the path straight. Her swollen and puffy eyes were now too obvious to tell that she was crying. She didn't even know where she was even going. As she was walking on the road, she saw a club in front of her. Women wearing short dresses and expensive accessories were entering into the club. Some men were also roaming in front of the club. Some were entering inside too. She saw a couple making out at the entrance of nearby alley beside the club. She remembered once Kat told her that alcohol always numbs her pain and worries. She wanted to numb this pain erupted in her heart too, which was hurting her a lot. She was feeling suffocated and her chest tightening. Suddenly her intrusive mind told her to go inside, and without thinking twice she entered inside the club. She rubbed her face with her hands to wipe all the tears away and walked inside further. For the first time in 20 years of her life, she has seen club. Slightly shaking and nervous, she was walking while looking here and there. It was something new to her. People were dancing and drinking. Couples were making out here and there, and some men were staring at her like she was an alien. Why? Because she was not wearing some scandalous outfits like other girls. She moved her gaze to her short pink frock, but she didn't see or feel any wrong in it. Shrugging, she moved her gaze to look at the club again. It had a second floor also, but no one was going upstairs. The club was very huge and classy. As she was walking while watching here and there, she bumped into someone so hardly. She stumbled back a little. Ow, did I bump into a wall disguised in human? she thought, and craned her head upwards. The human she was talking about was so muscular and burly. She was barely reaching to his chest. She watched his cold-featured and hardened ember gaze peering at her. She moved her gaze behind him and saw two men standing behind him, matching his facial expression but not looking as scary as him. It was looking like he was their boss. She nervously glanced at him, thinking he would say something, but he was only staring at her rudely. She frowned and finally decided to speak to that scary man in front of her. "I am sorry, I was not paying attention," she apologized timidly, fiddling with her fingers nervously. But he didn't open his mouth to utter a single word. This behavior of him made a scowl to appear on her face. Is he deaf? I just apologized to him. Can't he say it's okay? She thought. Hey kid, watch where you are walking. Suddenly one of the men from behind of him said. The word kid offended her. I'm not a kid. I'm an adult now, she retorted back to the man who just called her a kid. Yeah, sure. Wearing this little pink frock in a club. Have you seen the woman here? The other man standing on the other side of that scary man uttered. And mockery was lacing in his voice. What's with these men making fun of me? She thought. That's none of your concern. She spat in anger, walking away from their muttering rude man. The trio heard it clearly. Their boss, who still didn't utter a single word, gazed at her walking figure amusingly, but it wiped from his face soon. The one who called her a kid clenched his jaw and took a step in her direction, but halted when he saw his boss raised his palm telling him to let it go and strode away from there. The both of the men glanced at each other and then watched their boss in surprise. The man who couldn't even tolerate anyone touching him without his permission, intentionally or by mistake, let that kid go easily. But what could they do? They couldn't ask their boss, so they silently followed him like robots. She walked to the drink counter and nervously sat on one of the stools there. A scowl was still presented on her face because of these rude men. What do you want? The bartender asked her. She raised her gaze to the bartender and saw him gazing at her. I don't know, she replied to him because she never drank before, so she didn't know what to tell him. He noticed her swollen and puffy eyes, which made him snicker at her. Break up, he again asked her, and she glanced at him in shock. Was she that obvious? The bartender laughed out, watching her shocked expression. I know what can make you feel better, he said and went to mixing some drinks. She watched him curiously. After a few minutes, he served her a drink. She watched him keenly and asked him, What is this? Wyan asked, pointing her finger at the glass in front of her. He raised his head and replied, French martini. She nodded at him and he went to assist other customers. Wyan watched the glass carefully, thinking to drink it or not, but she wanted to numb the pain in her chest and only alcohol could help her. She slowly took a sip of her drink but sweated it away quickly, feeling the bitter taste of it burning her throat. It made her feel to gag. How people can drink this in one go? It's so bad, she thought. No, she couldn't drink that. She asked for the bill of the drink to the bartender and paid the bill, getting down from the stool. She walked out of the club, not feeling good in there. As she was walking, she felt someone following her. She turned around and saw no one was there, so she again started walking down the street. Her instincts again alerted her that someone was following her. She could clearly hear some faint footsteps walking behind her on the abandoned road. She got scared of the unknown danger following her from behind and moved her gaze here and there on the road to see any human there so she could ask for help from them if needed. But there was not even a single living being there in her sight. Where she came walking alone. She was not even familiar with that place. Should I go back to home? She thought, feeling scared now. But how could she go there where she got betrayed and humiliated? She couldn't let her self-respect to be down. She kept walking fastly to find some crowded place, but she felt the pace of the footsteps behind her were also fastened. Then she understood that she was not hallucinating. There were some people behind her following her. She turned her head back slightly and saw some dark figures walking behind her. She panicked and started running in fear. The figures behind her also started running to catch her. She turned her head to the front and started running as fast as she could. Sweat started forming on her forehead because of immense fear of those unknown people continuously following her. She just covered a few distance by running. The unknown figures reached near her. She almost started crying and opened her mouth to shout for help. But before she could, a hand came and clasped her mouth and her voice muffled. Her eyes widened in fear. Another hand came and encircled around her thin waist tightly. Ryan started struggling and thrashing around in the unknown people's hold. But suddenly a pin struck in her neck and she knew something got injected in her neck. Her vision started blurring. In order to clear her vision, she started blinking her eyes. But her eyelids started getting heavy and in a few minutes everything turned black for her and she fell into deep unconsciousness. After 2 days, the boss, Mr. Jeon Jungkook, turned his gaze to the girls standing there, scared and shaking from fear. He smirked watching them shaking in fear of him. He is enjoying the fear in them like a sadist he is. Boss, remove the blindfold from their eyes, he commanded. A man from the guards immediately ran to comply his order and removed the blindfolds from the eyes of the girls. All the girls started blinking to adjust the lights. Wine also blinked multiple times to clear her vision. When her eyes adjusted to the light, she saw they were in a warehouse and everywhere were guards and men presented there. The guns in their hands made her shudder in fear. She moved her gaze to her front and turned shocked watching the same man from the club in whom she bumped into and the other 2 men also present there standing behind him. Wine kept gazing at them with her shocked eyes, not knowing what these scary strangers are doing here. She was scared more than the other girls present there because she encountered them before and offended them by calling rude men. Will they hurt her for calling them that? Because as far as she can see, they don't have any good intentions for her and other girls standing there. Jungkook was peering at all the girls standing there coldly. When his ember eyes met with sapphire eyes of a little girl standing there already gazing at him, he turned shocked but didn't let the emotion show on his face like the expert he is. He didn't even thought that the girl he bumped into a different country will be standing in front of him in his empire. Yes, different country. The girls are abducted and sold to him in his country, his empire, Italy, where he rules and no one dare to defy him, no matter who. He didn't move his gaze from the sapphire-eyed girls and walked towards where the girls were standing. He felt an unknown kind of attraction towards her. He knew she is a feisty girl after meeting her in the club. He stopped standing tall in front of her. He peered down at her and coldly asked her, "What is your name?" Wine shuddered hearing his cold and husky voice. She thought he is asking her name to punish her for misbehaving with him and his man. She didn't move her gaze from his chest, which was just in front of her face, and stuttered out slowly, "Y.N. Campbell." So this safari-eyed little girl's name is Ryan, he thought. He was noticing her features keenly: short height, naturally silvery hair, sapphire doe eyes, pointed nose, heart-shaped pink lips. He thought, how will they taste? Fuck, he cursed under his breath. What is he even thinking? Yes, he is a womanizer, but he never gets attracted to any woman. Instead, women always get down to their knees for him. He moved his gaze away from her hastily and took a step to walk away. "Ryan, will you punish me?" Suddenly her sweet voice came from behind. He turned around and gazed at her, raising his brow. Ryan saw him gazing at her coldly, so she stuttered out, For disrespecting you and your men at the club." She completed her sentence and watched at him curiously. He gazed at her for a few minutes and walked away without replying her. He watched every girl standing there trembling in fear, not knowing what was going to happen to them, and him watching them with his cold eyes was intensifying their fear more and more. He evilly smirked towards them, making their cold blood run cold. "Where are we? And why are we here?" Finally a girl asked, stuttering to him, widening his smirk even more. He took long strides towards the girls, who questioned him and held her jaw in a tight grip, making her whimper. Do you think you are at a place to question? He spat angrily at her. He is the boss and he don't like anyone questioning him. He held her jaw softly, much tightly that it seems like her jaw will break soon. The girl started crying and whimpering, but he didn't lose his grip a bit. No one even dared to defy or stop him. This act of him clipped everyone's mouth shut, who was even thinking of asking anything to him. Only the cries and whimpering of the girl can be heard in the warehouse, and she was struggling to lose his grip from her jaw in anticipation but was failing badly against his strength. On the other hand, Vine was trembling in fear, thinking how cruel he is. If he is hurting her that much on asking a question, what will he do to her for disrespecting him? She gazed at him, hurting the girl badly, but she was not able to see it. It was paining her, also seeing someone getting hurt in front of her eyes, and she was not someone to watch everything silently. She strode towards them and stopped beside him. Please, please leave her, she pleaded in front of him. He clenched his jaw and turned his face towards her. Shut up, he spat at her. She flinched badly but again begged him. Please, leave her, she is sorry, we will not ask you anything again, she stuttered. Scared that he would lash out on her, the men standing there trembled in fear because of the courage she is showing and trying to stop their boss. They know consequences will not be good. Jungkook threw that whimpering girl on the floor and turning around held Wyan's throat in a tight grip, choking her. Her eyes widened in fear. He put a tight pressure on her throat and her air supply got completely blocked. Tears filled her eyes completely and she started struggling and clawing his hands, but he didn't even get a little bit affected by her tears and pain, because that's the thing he is famously for, his merciless and ruthlessness. He is a devil in disguise and don't feel any pain of others but enjoy in increasing it. No one spoke anything or even tried to watch him. His men's eyes were lowered straight on the ground. Wyan kept struggling in his hole and tears started streaming down her face. He pulled her close, still holding her throat in a tight grip, and gasped against her lips. Do not even try to come in my way again, he warned her, gritting his teeth, and threw her on the floor. Wyan landed on knees and elbows, making her cry out because of the pain. She started coughing and gasping for air. Violet immediately ran towards her and, making her sit properly, started caressing her back. JK, you all are here to please my man and serve them as how they told you to. If you even think of defying them, you will be dead in the next moment. Jungkook yelled authoritatively, making the girls and his men shudder in fear. The girls were scared to their core, so didn't even try to plead him to let them go. JK, this is Italy, my empire. If you even try to escape, you can't, because I will find you even from the hell and shred your skin from your bones. He told them the consequences for escaping from him. Wyan's coughing died down long ago, and now she was watching this man with her shocked eyes. The man she was thinking was scary is not only scary but completely evil. When even she reached Italy, was it happened when she was unconscious for 2 days? Now how will she go back to her home, her country, back? Is she trapped here for forever now? No, she can't let that happen. She wants to go to her home back. Now she misses her mom and dad. Why she even left them at the first place? She is blaming herself for all the situation she is in now. But now what? Jungkook motioned few of his men to come towards him and ordered them, show them what they have to do here. Yes, boss, one of the men said and nodded firmly. He moved his gaze to Wyan and again instructed strictly. If anyone tried to defy them, then show them their place, without moving his cold gaze away from her. She cowered away in fear. He strode away from there. The both men from earlier followed him like a robot. She started thinking what he means by pleasing his men. What if it is something she don't want to do? How will she save herself from these men? After the order from the boss, the man took all the girls in a hallway with many rooms. The hallway was completely silent and the doors were closed. The men stopped outside of the random room and one of them opened the door of the room and gestured the girls to enter inside. Ryan and all the girls hesitated to enter the room not knowing what's inside it, but they had no any other option instead of fulfilling their order. The girls entered inside and Ryan also entered behind them. What she saw there shook her soul. She saw a stark girl tied on a bed with chains clasped around her wrists, ankles, and collar. She was crying and pleading, but her voice was muffled by a mouth gag in her mouth. Ryan closed her eyes tightly in extreme shame. She don't know nothing about these things and didn't even know why are they doing this to her. She was feeling exposed in front of the eyes of the man standing there. The tight girl's muffled cries were making her legs weak and shaken up. She never saw or heard something like this before. Watch it carefully. No one will close their eyes, the man demanded, standing ahead of her. Ryan still didn't open her eyes. The shame was drowning her in a puddle. The man strode to her and fisted her hair, yanking her head ahead of all the girls. I said, open your eyes, he said, shaking Ryan's head while tightly holding her hair. She felt like her hair will rip out from her scalp. She slowly unlashed her lashes and tears started streaming down her eyes, making her vision blurry. But she wiped her tears from her frock sleeve and saw the three men started girl with a making her skin red. Ryan vigorously shook her head and started chanting no like a mantra. The poor girl got traumatized by watching the merciless scene unfolding in front of her. She couldn't tolerate this much hatred for a human by a human itself. Black dots started forming in front of her eyes and everything turned black. She passed out by the exhaustion and trauma and fell on the floor with a thud sound. The man standing behind her tusked and smirked at her. He turned his head towards the girl and told them strictly, as you saw, what your work is here, so no defiance will work here. He glanced at the other man standing behind and ordered, take them to the dungeon. The man nodded and started dragging the girls with a chain. A man came forward to take the unconscious Ryan with him, but the man who ordered them before stopped him by showing his palm to him. Leave her with me. The man firmly nodded and after giving a quick glance to Ryan, went away. By now, seeing her behavior, her innocence and naiveness, everyone understood that she is untouched and every man wants her for himself, to ruin her badly and tame her innocence. The man hoisted up Ryan on his shoulder and took her out of the room, taking her in another room in the hallway, which was empty. He put her on the bed placed in the corner and left the room, locking it from outside.